Hey there, welcome back to the channel. So grab a cup of tea or coffee, get comfortable, because today we're diving into something seriously creepy but also kind of fascinating. We're talking about cursed objects, not the Hollywood stuff with glowing eyes and dramatic music, but real, actual historical objects that people genuinely believe ruined lives, caused deaths, and brought terrible luck to anyone who touched them. Now, I know what you're thinking. Cursed objects? Come on, that's just superstition, right? And look, maybe you're right. Maybe it's all just coincidence and bad timing. But here's the thing. When the same object is connected to dozens of deaths, injuries, and bizarre accidents spanning decades or even centuries, well, it makes you wonder. Today we're looking at 5 real cursed objects from history. These aren't urban legends or creepypasta stories. These are actual items you can sometimes still see in museums today, locked away behind glass, with warning signs telling people not to get too close. And honestly, after researching these, I kind of understand why. Let's start with probably the most famous cursed object in history. So, the Hope Diamond. You've probably heard of it. It's this absolutely stunning blue diamond, weighs about 45 carats, and it's currently sitting in the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. Looks beautiful, right? Absolutely gorgeous. But here's the problem. This diamond has allegedly been connected to death, bankruptcy, suicide, and general misfortune for over 300 years. And the list of victims? It's long, really long. The story begins way back in the 1600s in India. Legend says a French merchant named Jean-Baptiste Tavernier stole this diamond from the eye of a Hindu statue. Big mistake. The priests apparently cursed anyone who would own the stone. Now, Tavernier himself, he sold the diamond and made a fortune, but according to the legend, he was later torn apart by wild dogs in Russia. Yikes. The diamond made its way to King Louis XIV of France. He bought it, loved it, wore it, and then his entire family line basically collapsed. Louis XIV died of gangrene. His son died of smallpox. His grandson also died young. And then there's Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. Yeah, they both owned the diamond during the French Revolution. We all know how that ended. Guillotine. Not great. After the revolution, the diamond disappeared for a while, then resurfaced in London, where it was purchased by a banker named Henry Hope. That's where it gets its name. Henry Hope died broke. His entire family fortune vanished. His wife went bankrupt. The diamond was sold off to pay debts. Then it was bought by a Turkish sultan, who gave it to his favorite wife. He later stabbed her to death in a fit of jealousy. The next owner was a Greek merchant who drove his car off a cliff with his whole family inside. Then it went to a Russian prince who was killed during the Russian Revolution. In 1911, an American socialite named Evelyn Walsh McLean bought the diamond. She thought the curse was nonsense. She wore it to parties, showed it off, laughed about the superstition. Within years, her son was killed by a car, her daughter died of an overdose, her husband left her and died in a mental institution, and she died broke and alone. The diamond was eventually donated to the Smithsonian in 1958 by a jeweler named Harry Winston. The mailman who delivered it, he got his leg crushed in a truck accident, his house burned down, and his dog died. I'm not making this up. Today, the Hope Diamond sits in a museum behind thick glass. Millions of people visit it every year. And you know what? The museum doesn't officially acknowledge the curse, but they definitely don't encourage people to touch it either. Just saying. Alright, next up, and this one's genuinely creepy. We're talking about a series of paintings from the 1950s called The Crying Boy. These were mass-produced prints of a young boy with tears running down his face. They were super popular in the UK. People hung them in their homes because, I don't know, I guess people in the 50s had interesting taste in wall art. But here's where it gets weird. In 1985, a British newspaper called The Sun started reporting on a bizarre pattern. Dozens of house fires across England had one thing in common. In the burned wreckage, completely untouched by flames, they kept finding these crying boy paintings. Everything else would be destroyed. Furniture turned to ash, walls collapsed, family photos burned. But the painting of the crying boy? Perfectly fine, not even singed. The reports kept coming in. Firefighters started noticing it too. One firefighter told the paper he'd seen the painting survive at least 15 different house fires, always intact, always face down on the floor, like it was carefully placed there. People started freaking out. The theory was that the painting itself was cursed and caused fires. Families began throwing their crying boy paintings into the street. Some even organized mass burnings of the paintings, which, is kind of ironic if you think about it, burning something because you think it causes fires. So where did these paintings come from? They were created by an artist named Giovanni Bragolin, though that might have been a pseudonym. Some versions of the story claim he painted orphaned children, and one of the boys he painted later died in a fire. Another version says the painter's own studio burned down shortly after he finished the series. Skeptics, of course, have explanations. They say the paintings were printed on flame-retardant material, which makes sense, right? Except, why were so many houses with this specific painting catching fire in the first place? That's the part nobody really explains. Even today, if you search for crying boy paintings online, you'll find them for sale, but a lot of sellers include warnings. For decorative purposes only, some say. I take no responsibility for what happens after purchase, others write. And honestly, I wouldn't want one in my house either. Call me superstitious, but why risk it? The paintings are still out there, by the way, hanging in charity shops, attics, and probably a few brave people's living rooms. If you see one, maybe just keep walking. Okay, so if you've ever wondered where Chucky from Child Play got his inspiration, meet Robert the Doll. This is a real doll from Key West, Florida, and he is absolutely terrifying. Not because he looks particularly scary, he's unsettling, sure, but because of the sheer number of people who claim this doll is genuinely haunted and malicious. Robert the Doll was made in 1906 and given to a boy named Robert Eugene Otto. The doll was supposedly a gift from a Bahamian servant who practiced black magic and didn't like the Otto family very much. Great gift, right? Young Robert loved the doll, named it after himself, took it everywhere, but things got weird fast. Robert's parents would hear him talking to the doll in his room, and they'd hear a different voice responding, not Robert's voice, a deeper, stranger voice. Neighbors reported seeing the doll move from window to window in the house when the family was out. Furniture would be overturned, items would go missing, and whenever something bad happened, Robert would blame the doll. Robert did it, he'd say. His parents thought he was just being a kid until they started hearing the other voice too. Robert kept the doll his entire life. Even as an adult, he kept it in his house. After Robert Otto died in 1974, the house was sold. The new owners found the doll in the attic. Their 10-year-old daughter claimed the doll was alive and wanted to kill her. She had nightmares for years. Eventually, they donated the doll to a museum just to get it out of their house. Today, Robert the Doll sits in the Fort East Martello Museum in Key West. And here's where it gets really interesting. The museum has rules. You have to ask Robert's permission before taking his photo. People who don't, they write to the museum later begging Robert to lift his curse. I'm serious. The museum has hundreds of letters from people apologizing to a doll. Visitors report their cameras malfunctioning, batteries dying instantly. Some people say they feel physically ill when they get near the case. Others claim they've seen his expression change or his head turn slightly. The museum staff will tell you they've seen strange things too. They hear giggling when the museum is empty, items get moved overnight, and Robert, well, they say if you look at the doll long enough, he looks back. If you ever visit Key West and go see Robert, just remember to ask permission for that photo, and maybe don't mock him, just to be safe. This one's more recent, which somehow makes it creepier. There's a painting called The Anguished Man, and it's been causing problems since the 1970s. The painting shows a distorted figure that looks like it's screaming in pain. Not exactly living room material, but the artist apparently mixed his own blood into the paint, and then he killed himself shortly after finishing it. A woman named Mrs. Robinson inherited the painting from her grandmother. Her grandmother had kept it in the attic for 25 years because, in her words, it brought evil into the house. Great heirloom, Grandma. Mrs. Robinson's grandson, Sean Robinson, eventually took the painting into his home in 2010. He started experiencing things immediately. He'd hear crying and screaming from the room where the painting was kept. He'd see a shadowy figure of a man in the hallway at night. Doors would slam on their own. Sean decided to do what any reasonable person in 2010 would do. He set up cameras and posted the footage on YouTube. And the videos? They're unsettling. You can see the painting literally falling off the wall despite being properly hung. Mist appears in front of the painting. Doors close on their own with nobody near them. Skeptics say it's all staged. Maybe it is, but Sean's uploaded dozens of videos over the years, and he's never claimed to make money from it or tried to sell the painting. He just keeps documenting the weird stuff that happens around it. Sean's wife refused to be in the same room as the painting. His son had nightmares when it was in the house. Visitors reported feeling nauseous and anxious near it. Eventually, Sean moved the painting to a secure location, but he still owns it. He's had paranormal investigators examine it, religious figures bless it, and skeptics tried to debunk it. The consensus? Something about that painting is definitely off. The most common theory is that the artist's blood in the paint somehow trapped his tortured spirit. Whether that's true or just a spooky story, I don't know, but I do know I wouldn't want it hanging in my house. Last one, and honestly, this might be the most disturbing because the body count is ridiculous. There's this ancient statue from Cyprus called the Woman from Lem, or the Goddess of Death. It's about 3,500 years old, carved from limestone, and depicts a female figure. Doesn't look particularly scary, just an old artifact, right? Wrong. This statue has allegedly killed every single family that's owned it. I'm not exaggerating. The body count is in the double digits, and it spans over a century. The statue was discovered in 1878 in Lem, Cyprus. The family who discovered it? All 7 members died within 6 years. Weird, but maybe coincidence. The statue was sold to another family. 4 years later, all members of that family were also dead. Okay, that's concerning. It was sold again. The next owner and his entire family died within months. Then the next owner died along with his 3 daughters. By this point, people were noticing a pattern. The statue was donated to the Royal Scottish Museum in Edinburgh, probably because nobody wanted to risk keeping it in their home anymore. But even in the museum, the curse apparently continued. The curator who handled the statue, he died shortly after. A museum worker who moved it also died unexpectedly. Eventually, the museum locked the statue in a storage area where it's rarely displayed. When they do put it on exhibit, it's behind thick protective barriers, and there are warnings not to touch it. Scientists and skeptics have tried to explain the deaths. Some suggest the statue might have been contaminated with something toxic, maybe arsenic or another poison that was absorbed into the stone over millennia. That could explain some deaths, but all of them? Entire families across multiple generations, all dying shortly after acquiring this one specific object? That's hard to explain away as pure coincidence. The statue remains in the museum's collection today. If you ever visit Edinburgh and happen to see it on display, maybe just look from a distance. Don't touch, don't photograph it without permission, and definitely don't try to buy it. So there you have it, 5 real cursed objects that have been connected to deaths, tragedies, and bizarre misfortune throughout history. Now, do I personally believe these objects are supernaturally cursed? I don't know. I like to think I'm a rational person. Coincidences happen. Bad luck happens. Sometimes people die unexpectedly and we look for patterns because our brains are wired to find meaning in chaos. But at the same time, when you look at the sheer number of incidents connected to each of these objects, spanning decades or even centuries, involving hundreds of different people who had no connection to each other, it makes you wonder, at what point does coincidence become something else? The Hope Diamond has outlived dozens of owners, most of whom died tragically. The crying boy paintings were found in fire after fire. Robert the doll has terrified generations. The anguished man refuses to stay on the wall, and the woman from Lem has left a trail of bodies across over a century. Maybe it's all explainable. Maybe there's science we don't understand yet. Maybe it's mass hysteria and confirmation bias. Or maybe, just maybe, some objects really do carry darkness with them. Either way, I'm perfectly happy learning about these things from a safe distance. If you ever come across any of these objects in person, well, now you know the stories. What you do with that information is up to you. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments, would you ever own a supposedly cursed object? Would the historical significance outweigh the risk? Or would you run in the opposite direction? I'll see you in the next one. Stay curious, stay safe, and maybe, just maybe, stay away from creepy antiques.